Hello all, Knives Tale here, and I want to tell you a story about the Civivi Exarch office gentlemanly carry knife by Civivi, which is kind of a little bit out of place because these are more budget knives. Let's stick that over there. We'll jump right into specs to get them out of the way real fast, real nice and simple. This knife is not going to sit the way I want it to sit, but it will sit like that, which is okay. Blade length, 3 1/8. Handle length, including this little lanyard nubbin, just under 3 3/8 of an inch. Oh, 3 3/8 of an inch. The total length is 7 3/8 of an inch. 3 is on the brain. About 4 1/8. Yeah, both the blade and the handle are falling a little over eighth, a little under a quarter, so that sort of adds up, which is fine. It is not a big knife in any way, shape, or form compared to the Civivi Elementum, which is a small knife, in my personal opinion. I know there are smaller, but this is about as small as I want to carry. And the Conspirator, which is a full-size knife, this is very close to the Elementum. It's a little bit bigger, blade and handle, but not by a ton. It is, however, of course, not nearly as tall of a knife as either of these. It is slightly thicker, though I don't think it's as thick, quite as thick as the Conspirator. No, it doesn't seem to be. But it is slightly thicker than the Elementum. Since we're speaking of thickness... Oh, you're 10 today! Oh, aren't we feeling special? Okay. 476 thousandths. Blade stock. I want to say, the blade stock on this is deceptive. It feels like it's thicker than it is. I know it's only like 115 thousandths thick, but I don't know if it's the chamfer or what, but it just feels like it's thicker. Doesn't it kind of look thick? Which is weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it's such a small knife. Behind the edge of this hologram blade, it should be pretty thin. Should be pretty thin behind the edge. I'm going way too far down on it. Okay. Yeah, honestly. 11 thousandths behind the edge. Quite thin. Quite slicey. Which is good for a sort of office-style carry. Hardware, I believe this would be the T8. I am correct in my assumption. T8 pivot. T8 pocket clip. T8 body screw. They can do it. Why don't they do it all the time? Is that really that hard? I don't understand. I don't get it, people. It's not that hard. It's super minimal. You've got basically 2 screws holding together and 1 extra for the pocket clip. It's not that bad. Wait, this one's going to be a little bit heavy because this is brass scales. 4.63 ounces. Maybe because it's so small, it feels a little heavier. This is a very deceptive knife. It feels like the blade stock is thicker than it is. It feels like it's a little heavier than it is. Just maybe because it's so small and the way it presents. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm losing my mind. Probably. It is almost 1-for-1 with our 2 AA batteries in size. And that brings us to the end of our specs. So, this is a front flipper in Civivi's 9CR Damascus, which I like when they do this sort of dark metallic finish on their Damascus. That is attractive looking. Give me that finish on Damasteel or higher end Damascus and make it consistent, and that could be really cool. It's nice. The front flipper is interesting on this one. The top couple gems feel sharp, and yet I slip off of them all the time. Even though they go all the way around. Like it should. This is great. This is the style, but for some reason these top ones just are slick. So if you go up here, I kind of slip off. You can do it. You have to go a little bit lower on the knife to do the regular, but I have to say, in my opinion, just use your side of your finger for this one. Works much better. You can do the tricks. I will say this is particularly easy to do with this knife. When they're not too tall, it makes it easier for those kinds of tricks. This one, it works. It works fine. Knife is centered. There is no play. This is a liner lock with steel liners underneath on bearings with a brass backspacer. So yeah, it feels very solid. There are G10 variants of this, but the entire knife has been discontinued, and I can't find it anywhere. I mean, I looked at, like, okay, I only looked a couple places, like, maybe 4, but while they do seem to indicate that the knife did exist, there's no old listings for it, at least not that I can find. So, it seems to be pretty much gone. Which, okay, Civivi's constantly making new knives, so that's fine. Just rotate the wheel, it'll go eventually. Drop point blade, very gradual belly drop, so you get actually a pretty good access to the tip in all the positions, even though it is definitely higher than the pivot. You do not have any dripping other than this for the front flipper, which is fine. It kind of adds to that gentlemanly kind of look to it. The stop pin is unfortunately behind the edge in the closed position. Though I'm trying to look into a black abyss there. There you go. There's the edge. It's actually not too bad despite not being where you want it to be. That was my fault. It's far enough away it hits back here, which is pretty close to the plunge, which ends right here just in front of that area. So you're never going to want to interact with that area in the first place. So not only do you have some life on there, you have room to cut in sharpening joils and different things like that to adjust things. As long as you know where you don't want to be, I don't think it's going to be a problem with this knife. And it's not a tall knife, so you don't have a giant amount of life. I mean, it is hollow ground, so you could probably get it up to there before it starts becoming... Actually, this is a pretty deep, pretty dramatic hollow ground. You could probably get it up to about here before it really starts being... So, I mean, yes, you can use it and keep using it, but that would look a little bit weird if that's how much knife you've got on your knife. How thick is it up there? Let's see. I'm curious now. I'm going to go halfway up the grind to about there. Well, that's 40-some thousandths. That's unusably thick. Let's see. Work our way down a little further. Okay, so you do have definitely some life to sharpen off. It doesn't get to about 20,000 till about here. So you would be able to go past that area, but I don't know. Again, the knife's going to start looking a little weird. Do with that what you will. Access to the lock bar. It is jimped lightly, smoothly, softly. This is good jimping on the lock bar. I don't like some jimping. When the lock bar itself is jimped, in the sense that the entire thing is cut out, I've never been a fond of that. Even though I do like the Elementum, I like when there's just some jimping on it. I'm not showing you the lock bar in that position, but the entire thing is smooth. It just feels better, in my opinion. You do have some access to this lock bar, as you can see. It's still a little bit narrow coming from the side, but you can mostly do it. It's not bad. Very good detent on this knife. Very poppy, very snappy. Almost a little bit strong for a front flipper, but it works. In this case, this has brass scales, but either way, milled. I like this milling alongside this sort of feathered milling. Very attractive. The brushed finish that Civivi did on this thing is nice, though as you can see, it has been carried and there are a few little scuffs on this thing. Not a ton. This is where the old clip was. I replaced the clip. And you can kind of tell where the patina has not set in quite the same. I don't know why, but it just has decided not to set in underneath the clip as much. Maybe because it just doesn't contact stuff the same. This came with one of Civivi's more standard deep carry clips. Obviously not quite that big, but I don't know. It didn't feel right on this. This is a aftermarket Civivi clip. You can get them from Amazon for like $11 or $14, something along that lines. They work really well. They're titanium, they're short, they're just popsicle sticks, but they're great. Yeah, you still feel it just because of how narrow this knife is, but it's not uncomfortable. Whereas the original clip was just kind of too obtrusive for me, or intrusive. Ergo's is it's a stick. You're holding onto a stick. It's super neutral. You've actually got a decent amount of room to move around on this thing. There's nothing bad here. Lanyard loop thing at the end here. I just will say that it never blew me away like I was hoping it would. Maybe because of the execution on that front flipper being a little slick. The starter clip not being great. I don't know. I wanted to love this thing, and I like it. It's not bad by any means. It's good looking. It's alright. But I was never quite in love with it like I thought I would be. Again, though, maybe it's also partially because it feels heavy and seems thick, even though it's technically not. It's deceptive. Now, I'm not going to say whether I recommend it or not, because, again, these things are discontinued, and I don't know if I can find one. I will continue to look. I will see if I can link something. But this is just sort of one of Civivi's many designs. It's a good knife, and it's a solid design that definitely feels sort of office carry. But it's not knocked out of the park in that sense. Honestly, if they were to make it just a tiny bit taller, this way, and put out a Wii version of this thing in titanium with a really good brush finish and this execution, maybe get rid of the lanyard, put a more customized clip that's a little bit more chamfered and fits the handle because of that chamfer better. When you go thin, you need these chamfers on the edges to not feel the edges as much. I think they could probably do a slightly improved version 2 of this. But it's also not really bad as it is, so it's just... it leaves you with a loss for words, where you're not unhappy with it, but you're just saying, there's something here that I don't love as much as I thought I was going to. But there's nothing to majorly, say, complain about either. So I don't know. It's a strange one. For being as simple as it is, it feels off. It might just be because of the brass scales. let's be honest, it doesn't feel maybe as nimble because of those. Yeah, the scales are all of the weight on this knife. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. What could possibly be throwing this off? Again, I do like it, though. And I say again, a lot. And I'm going to continue saying again, probably, a lot. Leave a like, comment, subscription, what have you, if you would kindly do so to support a small channel. And I'm going to close the book on this and say it's fine. It was probably about $60 in its standard form. This one was probably about $80 or $90, I want to say. Just outside of that budget territory with the Damascus and the brass. But they're pretty hard to find, if not downright impossible. So you don't have to worry about it. Just enjoy looking at a piece of Civivi history, I guess. I don't know what else to say. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.